I stood in the kitchen, my hands gripping the counter so tightly my knuckles turned white. Across the room, Monica sat at the table, perfectly composed, swirling her spoon in a cup of chamomile tea, like she was reading from a script instead of dismantling my world. She didn't even look at me when she said it. Just tossed it out like a casual afterthought. By the way, Emma wants the wedding to be family only. She thinks it'll be less awkward if you don't come. For a second, the words didn't register. They floated there in the air, sharp and unreal. Then something inside me twisted. The air around me thinned, like I'd suddenly been pushed underwater. Less awkward for who? I asked, though my voice barely came out. I wasn't even sure who I was asking. Monica, myself, the walls. I'd been there for every moment of Emma's life. Every scraped knee, every fevered night when I sat by her bed, whispering stories, wiping sweat off her forehead. Every dance recital I showed up for with flowers in hand, even when work was chaos. Every college move, every tearful phone call after a breakup. I was the one who built the dollhouse she cried for at Christmas. The one who stayed behind when Monica walked out. Argument, slamming doors behind her. And now, I was a name scratched off a guest list. I stared at her, hoping I'd misunderstood, praying it was some kind of twisted joke. I'm her father, I said quietly. Like maybe the universe just needed a reminder. Like maybe Monica had forgotten. She didn't even blink. Just raised her cup to her lips and took a slow sip. You're overreacting, she muttered. It's just a wedding. Just a wedding. The words slammed into me harder than I expected. Just a wedding. My daughter's wedding. The moment I'd imagined since she was a child. I pictured walking her down the aisle, offering her arm to a man who promised to love her the way I always had. I pictured the father-daughter dance, her hand in mine, her smile bright through tears. And now none of it would happen. Because it might be awkward. I wanted to scream. To flip the table, shatter her perfect little teacup, make her understand how deep this cut went. But I didn't. I swallowed it, the same way I'd swallowed every slight, every insult, every dismissive shrug for years. Monica didn't even notice. Or worse, she did, and she didn't care. I turned away and walked to the living room, my chest tight, something unraveling in me. My laptop sat on the couch, and before I even knew what I was doing, my fingers were moving. I typed fast. Like I was running from something, like booking a flight might patch the hole that had just torn open in my chest. Santorini. A week away. Somewhere the sun touched the sea and no one knew my name. Somewhere I didn't have to pretend that being excluded from my daughter's wedding didn't feel like a funeral. I booked the flights, the villa, every detail down to the airport transfer. When I finished, I sat back and stared at the screen, letting the silence fill the room. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to beg to be part of something they'd already decided I didn't belong in. The next morning, I packed a bag. Nothing fancy. Shirts, shorts. The old leather sandals Emma once gave me on Father's Day. I left a note on the counter for Monica. Gone for a week. Don't call unless it's an emergency. I didn't look back when I locked the door behind me. The drive to the airport felt like something I hadn't done in years. A slow shedding of everything that had weighed me down. I kept hearing Monica's voice in my head. Less awkward. The phrase repeated over and over, like it had burned itself into my spine. Awkward. How could it be awkward to have me there? I raised that girl. I hugged her when she couldn't sleep. I paid for the damn wedding venue they were celebrating in. But none of it mattered. Not to them. When the plane lifted off, I stared out the window and watched the ground shrink beneath me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was running toward anything. I was finally running away. And for the first time, it felt like the right thing to do. The moment I stepped out of the taxi, the warmth of Santorini hit me like a soft slap of relief. The scent of salt, citrus, and sun, bleached stone filled the air, and for the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe again. The path to the villa curved along the cliff, and with each step, I felt further from that cold kitchen. And the way Monica had looked at me like I didn't matter. The driver hauled my bag behind me, while I stared out at the Aegean Sea shimmering like a mirror, reflecting everything I was trying to forget. The villa was small but stunning, whitewashed walls, blue shutters, and a balcony that hung right over the cliff's edge. The man at the front desk handed me the key with a smile and a glass of champagne. I wasn't sure what I expected to feel when I took that first sip. Maybe bitterness, maybe regret. But it was only silence. Not the uncomfortable silence of being ignored. But something clean, empty, full of possibility. I walked into my room and stopped cold. Floor to ceiling windows framed the ocean like a painting, and the balcony doors were wide open, letting the breeze roll through like it belonged to no one. I dropped my bag, kicked off my shoes, and stepped outside. My feet touched the cool tiles, and the wind lifted my shirt slightly, brushing against my skin in a way that felt like a whisper saying, "You made the right choice." Back home, Monica was probably sending centerpiece photos to Emma. Or taking selfies with that tight-lipped smile she always wore when she wanted to look more involved than she actually was. Emma, maybe she was doing her final dress fitting, laughing with her bridesmaids, pretending this was the happiest day of her life while the man who raised her, truly raised her, wasn't even a thought in her mind. I pulled out my phone, snapped a photo of my bare feet against the deep blue sea, and posted it without thinking. The caption just came to me. "Silence looks good on me." I didn't do it for attention. Maybe it was a jab. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was the only way I could say out loud what I hadn't been able to say back home. Within minutes, my cousin Ryan dropped laughing emojis in the comments. My sister Chloe messaged me directly. "Wait. Weren't you supposed to be at Emma's wedding?" I didn't answer. Not yet. I wasn't ready to say it out loud that I had been uninvited, erased, cut out of the day I dreamed about for decades. Nothing from Monica. Nothing from Emma. No texts. No likes. Just silence. Their silence rang louder than anything Chloe or Ryan could say. I waited, sipping slowly, pretending I didn't care, but checking the screen every few minutes anyway. Still nothing. So I leaned back in the chair, kicked my legs up on the railing, and let the sun kiss my skin. I waved to the waiter passing by and ordered something stronger. Whiskey on the rocks. He returned quickly, the glass sweating in his hand, and I took a slow sip, letting it burn through everything I couldn't say. It settled in my chest like a slow exhale. The villa was quiet, the air heavy with peace I hadn't tasted in years. No one asking for money. No one telling me to just get over it. No one pushing me out of my own family's narrative. I sat there as the sun dropped lower, the sky bleeding orange and pink over the sea. I thought about Emma's first dance recital, how I sat in the front row, knees bouncing nervously, camera shaking in my hand. I remembered her 8th birthday. How I stayed up half the night building that Barbie dream house because she begged for it. And Monica forgot to buy the batteries. I remembered how she cried after her first heartbreak. And how I stayed on the phone until 2 in the morning, talking her through every awful detail, every broken word. And now I wasn't even worth a seat in the last row of her wedding. I wasn't bitter. At least, I told myself I wasn't. I was just done pretending this didn't hurt. The sky darkened. I ordered dinner. A plate of grilled fish and olives, fresh bread and wine. And ate alone by candlelight, watching the waves break softly below. The waiter came to clear my plate and nodded at me like he could see something in my eyes. I smiled back, small and polite. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. I finished my wine, let the last sip linger on my tongue, and went back inside. The room was dim and cool, the sheets crisp and untouched. I lay down on the bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the ache in my chest to fade, for the silence to stop echoing. But it didn't, it just got deeper. And somehow, that felt okay. Because at least this silence was mine. 3 days into my escape in Santorini, I was stretched out on a cushioned lounger by the infinity pool, beer in hand, sun blazing high above, the sea shimmering below me. It was the first time in years I'd truly felt weightless. The kind of quiet that doesn't just soothe your ears, but unclenches the knots inside your chest. The phone sat beside me on the small table. Screen dark, and for a moment, I let myself believe that maybe the world had finally learned to live without me. I took a slow sip of beer, condensation dripping down my wrist, and closed my eyes, letting the hum of cicadas and distant waves lull me into a strange kind of peace. Then the phone buzzed. I cracked one eye open and glanced at the screen. A message from Ryan again, probably another joke. But when I tapped it open, my stomach tightened. "Call me ASAP. You're not going to believe this." I frowned. What now? Before I could put the phone down again, it lit up with 3 missed calls from Monica, back to back, her name glowing like a siren. My fingers froze. Another buzz. This time it was Emma. I let it ring until it stopped. Heart pounding even though I had no reason to care anymore. Then Monica again. Twice. What the hell was going on? I flipped the phone face down on the table, tried to ignore the thundering in my chest. I had come here to breathe. To forget. To exist beyond their chaos. But now, it was creeping in again, clawing at the edges of my peace like it couldn't stand being left behind. I rolled over. Back toward the sun, trying to drown out the vibration I could still feel through the table. But I couldn't unhear it. Couldn't stop my mind from racing. After days of silence. Nothing from them. Not a word, not a single acknowledgement. Why now? What could possibly be urgent enough for them to start a war on my phone? I picked it up again, not to answer, just to check the flood. Voicemails from Monica, a text from Emma that simply read, "Dad." The question mark hit harder than I expected. Like she wasn't even sure I still was. And then another missed call from Colin. My brother-in-law, a man who only ever calls when he's drunk or in trouble. My hands curled around the phone tighter. Something was wrong. Deep down, I could feel it. But I wasn't ready to dive back in. I pressed the power button and turned the phone off completely. The silence that followed was loud, almost mocking, but I welcomed it. Let them scream into the void for once. I was done being the bridge they burned and expected me to rebuild. I called for another beer, my voice steady even though my chest felt like it might crack open. The waiter nodded and returned quickly, handing me a cold one without a word. I took a long sip and leaned back again, eyes locked on the horizon. If they wanted something from me now, they could wait. They'd made their choice when they left me off that list. Now I was making mine. The phone stayed off the rest of the day. I swam in the pool. I walked the cliffs. I ordered a dinner so large the waiter raised an eyebrow but didn't say a word. I didn't check messages. I didn't chase anyone's voice. I let the silence expand. Let it press against me like a second skin. Whatever storm was brewing back home, I wasn't their umbrella anymore. They'd have to weather it on their own. I woke up to the sound of the waves brushing softly against the cliffs below my villa, sunlight stretching across the bed in long golden lines. Day 4 in Santorini. And I was starting to feel like I was shedding an old skin. The air tasted different here, lighter, cleaner, as if I'd left all the noise behind. I stretched slowly, poured myself a cup of strong black coffee, and stepped out onto the balcony. The sea greeted me with a shimmer that reminded me I wasn't part of their world anymore. Not Monica's. Not Emma's. I hadn't turned on my phone since yesterday's storm of missed calls. I knew they hadn't stopped trying. Something in my gut told me, the moment I powered it on, the chaos would be waiting. But I wasn't ready to go back there yet. Not to their mess, not to their neediness disguised as love. I took a slow sip and let the silence settle into my bones. But curiosity is a sneaky thing. I powered the phone on. Just to check the time, I told myself, and there it was. A flood of notifications lit up the screen like a wildfire. The one that caught my eye was a text from Emma. Sent at 3 a.m. her time. "Dad, please call me." I messed up. I stared at it for a while, that single sentence tightening something inside me I'd been trying to keep loose. I didn't answer. Not yet. I wasn't sure what I'd say, even if I wanted to. I scrolled through the rest. Voicemails from Monica, another missed call from Colin. My thumb hovered over the messages, but I didn't press play. Instead, I called Ryan. He picked up on the second ring, laughing even before he said hello. "Man, you really chose the perfect week to disappear." I leaned on the balcony railing. "What happened?" "You didn't hear." His voice shifted. "The wedding blew up." I didn't say anything. Bryce found messages on Emma's phone, from her ex. Late night texts. From the night before the wedding. He lost it. They had a screaming match at the reception. In front of everyone. I closed my eyes. Then Bryce's mother jumped in, accused Monica of pushing Emma into the marriage, said the whole thing was a mistake. It was like a soap opera. Colin started yelling at the DJ for playing the wrong song. Half the guests left before dinner. No cake cutting, no speeches, nothing. I let his words sink in slowly. Not shock, not sadness. Just a strange stillness inside me. They didn't make it to the first dance. I asked. "Nope," Ryan said. "Emma was a mess, Monica too. But of course she acted like it was all someone else's fault. I think she even blamed you." "Of course she did." I hung up a few minutes later, The ocean still stretching endlessly in front of me. But now the breeze felt sharper, more deliberate. I looked down at the text from Emma again. Dad, please call me. I messed up. I imagined her sitting somewhere with mascara streaked down her face. Monica whispering excuses in her ear. Both of them trying to rewrite the narrative so I'd be the bad guy again for not showing up. But I wasn't the one who left someone off the guest list. I wasn't the one who thought family was disposable until everything went to hell. I set the phone down without replying, grabbed a towel, and headed down the path toward the beach. The sun was already hot. The sand warm beneath my feet. I dove into the waves without hesitation, letting the salt water rush over me, drag everything else away. They'd called because they wanted me to fix it. But I wasn't their fixer anymore. Whatever fell apart at that wedding had nothing to do with me. They made their choices. Now they could live with them. That evening, I sat on the villa balcony. The sky bleeding into a deep violet as the sun disappeared behind the cliffs. The air was cool, the kind of chill that made your skin remember you were alive. I had a glass of red wine in my hand. Dry and bold, the kind that warmed your throat, and left a trail in your chest. The weight of the day lingered in my shoulders, but I didn't feel heavy. Not like before. I'd walked the cobbled streets alone, watched the waves slam against the shore, eaten slow at a seaside tavern, where no one asked who I was, or what role I played in someone else's story. Then my phone lit up again. Monica's name glowing across the screen, 3 voicemails stacked behind it. I stared at it for a long time before pressing play. The first one came in sharp and fast. Her voice tight with that familiar tone of controlled panic. David, this is getting ridiculous. If you had just been here, maybe Emma wouldn't have felt so cornered. Maybe none of this would have happened. I laughed under my breath, but it caught in my throat. She wasn't even hiding it, wasn't even pretending. Somehow, their chaos had unraveled, and it was my absence they blamed. I pressed the second message. I'm sorry, she said, her voice softer now. That syrupy tone she used when she wanted to guilt me. I didn't think it would turn out like this. We need to talk. The third one was clipped. Cold, like she was done pretending. Fine. Keep ignoring us. But this isn't helping anyone. I leaned back, swirling the wine in the glass. Not helping who, Monica? You. Emma. The wedding had already burned down. I hadn't lit the match. I just didn't show up to hold the fire extinguisher. As I took another sip, my screen lit up again. Emma, this time. A FaceTime request. Her name flickered across the screen alongside a photo of her from high school graduation, beaming with pride, arms wrapped around me. I let it ring out. I didn't need to see her face. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Seconds later, a text came in from Monica's sister, Evelyn. Just so you know, things might have gone differently if you'd been there to keep the balance. Emma's a mess. You should call her. Keep the balance. That's what they called it now. My years of sacrifice. My silence. My ability to absorb every insult, every shrug, every cold shoulder without pushing back. I was the glue that held them together. And now that I wasn't there to keep the cracks from spreading, they were finally feeling the weight of their own fractures. I set the wine down and stared out at the sea. They wanted me back because they needed someone to fix what they had broken. They needed someone to absorb the shame, the fallout, the gossip. They needed a scapegoat to point to when the story got uncomfortable. But I wasn't picking up the pieces anymore. I wasn't holding their weight just to be pushed aside when things looked picture perfect again. I finished my wine slowly, every sip a small declaration. I don't belong to you anymore. I don't owe you anything. I had spent years standing in the background of their lives, silent, steady, invisible. Not anymore. I poured another glass, the sea dark and endless in front of me. I didn't flinch when the phone buzzed again. Let it buzz. Let them wonder what it feels like to reach out and be met with silence. I was halfway through my dinner at a quiet seaside taverna when my phone started vibrating again. The scent of grilled fish and lemon clung to the air, blending with the salty breeze off the water. I had a glass of white wine in my hand and a plate of fresh octopus in front of me, and for once, everything felt simple. The soft flicker of candlelight, the sound of cutlery on plates, low conversations humming around me. It all felt like a world untouched by the chaos I'd left behind. Then Rosa called. I hesitated before answering, but something in my gut told me to pick up. You missed a show, she said, laughing so hard she could barely get the words out. David, oh my God, it was a train wreck. And honestly, it was beautiful. I leaned back in my chair, the wine glass poised between my fingers. What happened now? Rosa didn't hold back. After Bryce stormed out, Emma had a full-blown meltdown. In front of everyone. Mascara running, hands shaking, screaming at Monica. The guests were frozen, just watching her unravel. Monica kept pretending everything was fine, smiling, adjusting her dress, whispering fake reassurances, but you could see it in her eyes. Panic. I stayed silent, chewing slowly, each word Rosa said settling deeper in my chest. And Colin, she went on. Drunk off his ass, started yelling at the bartender for cutting him off. Evelyn was loudly blaming Monica for the whole disaster, saying she pushed Emma into the marriage. The DJ packed up and left early. No dancing, no cake, no bouquet toss. Just tears and silence. I imagined it all. The venue I helped pay for, filled with shattered expectations. Monica flitting around trying to hold it together, while everything crumbled. Emma sobbing in her white dress, the fairy tale she built on silence and exclusion burning down around her. And not a single person there who could hold it up. Except me. Except I wasn't there anymore. They kept looking around for someone to fix it. Rosa said, her voice softening. And then it hit them. You were the one who always fixed it. The one who stayed calm when everything went sideways. And this time you weren't there. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. The bitter satisfaction in my chest was enough. You know what I think? Rosa continued. I think this was karma. They thought you'd come running. They thought they could toss you aside, then call you back like nothing happened. But you left. And they weren't ready for what life looks like without you. I smiled slightly, finishing the last bite of my dinner. The fish was tender. The wine crisp, and the sea stretched endlessly in front of me. I looked out at the darkening sky, letting the sound of waves ground me, while Rosa's words echoed in my head. They didn't want you there until they needed you, she said. And I'm proud of you for staying gone. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. Yeah, I said quietly. So am I. After we hung up, I stayed a while longer, just watching the lanterns sway gently in the breeze, feeling a calm I hadn't known in years. There was no part of me that wanted to be back in that chaos. No part of me that missed the role they carved out for me. The invisible caretaker, the quiet fixer, the man in the background. I paid my bill in cash, leaving a generous tip. Then I walked slowly back to the villa, my sandals brushing the cobbled path, the stars stretching wide overhead. When I reached the balcony, I poured myself another glass of wine and stood there, letting the wind run through my shirt. The sea was dark now, but still alive, still whispering. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of myself. Sunglasses on, wine in hand, the ocean behind me. And posted it with one sentence. Turns out overreacting feels a lot like peace. I didn't check for comments. I didn't wait for calls. I just stood there, alone but never more whole. And for the first time in a long time, I knew. I wasn't going back. I woke up to the soft sound of birds outside my villa, the golden light from the rising sun spilling through the open window, like a gentle invitation to start again. It was day 7 in Santorini, and I could feel something inside me had shifted. Quietly, slowly, but undeniably. The sea was still whispering below, the cliffs still held the same strength. But I was different. I brewed my coffee, held the warm mug in my hands, and stepped onto the balcony. The wind tugged at the hem of my shirt, and for a few minutes, I let the peace settle over me. Then I checked my phone. There it was, an email from Monica. No subject line, no warmth. Just a flat, cold string of words. You've made your point. Come home so we can talk. I read it twice, then a third time, and the more I read, the colder I felt. Made my point. Like I had thrown a tantrum. Like this entire week was just some petty protest. There was no apology. No acknowledgement of what they'd done. Just that same old tone. Condescending, dismissive, controlling. I set the phone down, my jaw clenched so tight I could hear my teeth grind. Then came a text from Emma. It was long. The kind of message you don't write unless something's tearing you apart inside. Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen this way. I let Mom and Bryce's family convince me. I should have fought harder. I should have stood up for you. I miss you. Please, please call me. I stared at it for a long time. I wanted to believe her. Wanted to think maybe something in her had finally cracked open. But the truth was, I didn't know anymore. I'd spent so many years being her safety net that I didn't know who she was without me catching her every fall. I didn't text back. I didn't call. I typed a short reply to Monica instead. Extended my stay. And I turned off my phone. Let them sit with that. I walked into the bathroom, ran a hot shower, and let the steam wash away everything I couldn't say. When I stepped out, I looked at myself in the mirror. Not the tired man they used to shrug past. Not the silent figure behind the curtain. I looked like someone who had finally stepped into his own life. I spent the day wandering through the winding streets of Oya, the white walls glowing under the sun, blue domes reflecting the sky. I stopped at a small cafe, ordered a honey, drizzled pastry and a dark coffee, and sat by the window watching people pass. No one knew me here. No one asked me to be anything. And I didn't miss the old role, not for a second. I remembered birthdays Monica forgot. The rushed cards. The dinners that felt like obligations. Emma's quick, "Happy birthday, Dad," tossed over her shoulder as she checked her phone. I remembered every time I stood quietly in the back, while Monica talked loud and Emma shined bright. I was the one who filled gas tanks, paid bills, changed flat tires, covered tuition. But I was never the one they toasted. And now they wanted me back. Because they didn't know how to function without me. They didn't want me. They wanted the support, the calm, the glue. But I wasn't going to be their glue anymore. Let them feel the cracks. Let them fall apart. I'd spent too long pretending love meant sacrifice, while they defined love as convenience. That evening, I walked to the cliffs, sat on a stone ledge overlooking the sea, and let the wind carry away every last shred of guilt. I wasn't heartless. I was just finally choosing myself. I watched the waves roll in and thought, if this is what overreacting looks like, I hope I never go back to underreacting again. Because peace doesn't beg for a place at the table. Peace builds its own. David's story isn't just about a wedding he wasn't invited to. It's about the silent unraveling of a role he'd been forced into his entire life. For years, he had been the unacknowledged foundation, the steady hand, the quiet provider, always holding his family together while being pushed further into the background. He paid the bills, absorbed the tension, and stayed calm while others took center stage. But when he was casually excluded from the most important day of his daughter's life, something inside him broke. And for the first time, he chose himself. His trip to Santorini wasn't just an escape, it was a rediscovery of self-worth, a reclaiming of space, identity and peace. As chaos unfolded back home, David stayed away, not out of vengeance, but out of clarity. He realized that love without respect is manipulation, and sacrifice without appreciation is exploitation. The lesson here is powerful. Sometimes the hardest decision is walking away from those you love, when they've stopped valuing who you are. Setting boundaries doesn't make you cruel. It makes you whole. In life, you don't need to keep proving your worth to those who refuse to see it. Respect yourself enough to choose peace over obligation,